Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're starting Fallout New Vegas. According to Steam, this is a 2001 release game. There's a lot of backstory here. Let me go through the settings as I talk. First of all, I'm recording this right after watching the first season of the Amazon Prime Fallout TV series, which, slight spoiler for the very ending, references Fallout New Vegas, but honestly doesn't inherently have to do much more than that. It could very easily be the case that in the second season they still don't ever reach New Vegas, or the one character sees New Vegas and then just walks past it and never actually integrates with that storyline. There are two endings at least, I think, for this game, and as such, one of those would have to be made canon if the TV series actually did decide to make something canon and didn't just have like the characters leave it vague and the story leave it vague. Being a 2001 game and playing this in 2024, you are unsurprised, you should be unsurprised that all the video settings have by default just set up to the highest, except for anti-aliasing, which the launcher only did 2 samples there, and I turned it up to the maximum number of samples. I don't think we need general subtitles on, but I might be wrong about that. I suppose this is one way you can adjust audio. I like the fact that the audio has multiple sound effects, like specifically for footsteps, specifically for music, specifically for voice and effects, and the radio. I wish all games were like this, but ideally, if the default settings have everything in slightly different positions, why not just balance your game so that everything is at the middle position to start, and then let the player adjust if they feel the balance is off. I'm also not 100% sold on this amber interface over the green interface, so I may change that to be more in line with my previous 2 playthroughs, one of which I did for YouTube, of Fallout 3, which this question was always, do I go ahead and play Fallout 4, or do I play the side game made by a completely different company, Fallout New Vegas, that chronologically was released after Fallout 3. And what sold me is that because of the Fallout TV series, they have done, they being Bethesda with their parent company ZeniMax and their now parent company Microsoft, have done an incredibly poor job of promoting and upgrading the existing titles that they want to promote and upgrade. There's a next generation visual update that really didn't do anything for PC players for Fallout 4, so skipping that until they maybe patch the patch is really wise. And Fallout 76 has seen a lot of people return to it or go to it for the first time, but Fallout 76 still, from the reviews I've seen, seems to be an incredibly unentertaining game. And Fallout 4 is alright, but not, I think, even as good as Fallout 3. And inherently Bethesda is just not winning very well with their own properties. Starfield has released and pretty much been forgotten for just not being good enough. So this is all the DLC you can buy on Steam, so I assume this is all of it. It is worth pointing out that this game seems to be fairly crashy, which also highlights another issue. As a video game critic, I want to criticize what the experience would be for your average person. And your average person is just going to buy Fallout New Vegas on a whim after watching the Fallout TV series, or just on some other whim, and start playing it. they're not going to go into the discussion forums on Steam and look at pinned comments on how to add mods and launchers to prevent it from crashing or to upgrade the graphics. And if I were to put mods in as a video game critic, I can only really put in mods to prevent crashing, at which point I can't really comment on how stable the game is in the first place. Inherently, I don't think the engine that they used are particularly good. And at the time, it may have been the best move. I think it's the Gamebryo engine is what it's called, but in modern context, it definitely feels like the right move once Microsoft acquired ZeniMax and Bethesda would have been to hand the Fallout games over to some other teams that would use the Unreal Engine and remake all the games in Unreal as just full-on remakes, remasters, and just move the employees inside of Bethesda away from their internal engine and it's not even as much their internal engine, it's Todd Howard's idea of what a game should be, and what Fallout and Elder Scrolls Skyrim and Starfield, their ideas of procedurally generated giant open world games no longer work in 2024 in my opinion. And it's time to have more of a linear scripted experience with what is just nowadays your standard open world environments. Not environments that have to be huge and full of nothing, but just big enough to suit the needs of the game. Something closer to like BioShock's level of their arenas and environments, I would say, is probably a good comparison. To something like Skyrim, which has open fields that are just giant and empty, so an occasional dragon can attack you, or maybe a bear. But very often you're spending 5 to 10 minutes in Skyrim just walking around, not encountering anything of interest. So that's really where I'm coming from the perspective. I think Fallout New Vegas is the right one to go for. There is a massive love for Fallout New Vegas, which is made by Obsidian, except for in the hearts of Todd Howard and the people at Bethesda and ZeniMax, and so they would like people to forget it, which makes it weird that it was referenced in the TV show, and it does kind of paint the picture that the TV show itself may be driving the ship going forward. If the TV series maintains popularity enough, it may just be that Fallout is remembered in a decade as being a TV show that just happened to be loosely based on a video game series, and not the vice versa of that. I do suspect that there's a lot of people who will watch the Fallout TV show and try to play the Fallout games and just not like them. It won't be close enough to the TV show, or it just won't be a kind of game that kind of audience would actually ever want to play, because this is really just hardcore RPG nerdiness when it gets down to it. It's role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons, except for instead of being in a fantasy environment, it's set up in this Fallout nuclear punk environment. Okay, I think that's probably enough setup and explanation. I did, in the settings, set it down to very easy. My thinking there is this game I know is going to be long, and I'm still in a weird position where making content for my channel is a little bit more difficult, and I'm getting interrupted a little bit more often in the middle of recording things. So to try to counteract that and try and save some stuff, just setting the game to easy I think will work. We'll have to see if easy just lowers the amount of damage you take, or if it also lowers percentages when you try to persuade somebody, or how many skill points you start with. It may very well just be an increase in the number of skill points you start with. There are all kinds of perks for a second playthrough of Fallout New Vegas and like mods you can put in to make more perks happen and more elements happen. But for the first playthrough, I want to play it clean as possible, and I have never even played this, so I don't know what's gonna go, how this is really gonna go. Okay, Vegas 2025. I have an animated cutscene. I question if maybe being at 1080p 16:9 might push this a little hard. This cutscene cinematic looks like it's at a little lower frame rate. This is a pretty decent cutscene, following, I think, in tracks of falling in line with the cutscenes of Fallout 1 and 2, which are also games that were not made by Bethesda. It's a little bit longer. This is very reminiscent of the cutscenes you would see in the 2000 era and 90s video games, and we kind of don't see that now. The ultra hyper realistic graphics are kind of...
War never changes.
Why is there no subtitle there?
When atomic fire consumed the earth, those who survived did so in great underground vaults. When they opened, their inhabitants set out across the ruins of the old world to build new societies, establishing villages, forming tribes. As decades passed, what had been the American Southwest united beneath the flag of the new California Republic, dedicated to old world values of democracy and the rule of law. As the Republic grew, so did its needs. Scouts spread east, seeking territory and wealth in the dry and merciless expanse of the Mojave Desert. They returned with tales of a city untouched by the warheads that had scorched the rest of the world, and a great wall spanning the Colorado River. The NCR mobilized its army and sent it east to occupy Hoover Dam and restore it to working condition. But across the Colorado, another society had arisen under a different flag. A vast army of slaves forged from the conquest of 86 tribes, Caesar's Legion. 4 years have passed since the Republic held the dam, just barely, against the Legion's onslaught. The Legion did not retreat. Across the river, it gathers strength. Campfires burn, training drums beat. Through it all, the New Vegas Strip has stayed open for business, under the control of its mysterious overseer, Mr. House, and his army of rehabilitated tribals and police robots. You are a courier, hired by the Mojave Express to deliver a package to the New Vegas Strip. What seemed like a simple delivery job has taken a turn for the worse.
You got what you were after, so pay up.
You're crying in the rain, Pally.
So it looks like almost like this is in-engine animation, but I doubt that's really the case.
Time to cash out.
Will you get it over with?
Maybe cons kill people without looking them in the face. But I ain't a fink. Dig? You've made your last delivery, kid. Sorry you got twisted up in this scene. From where you're kneeling must seem like an 18-carat run of bad luck. Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
So this is labeled as Bethesda Softworks Presents, but the fandom really credits everything to Obsidian as far as how different this game is. That is an incredibly long intro to a game by modern standards, just trying to explain everything. And there are some loading things. Now, because I have DLC installed, I'm probably going to have a slightly different experience than what you would have if you'd played the game originally without DLC installed. So, but I doubt that's gonna change too much. In Fallout 3, to compare, there were DLCs installed, and they would just be locations on the map that you would have to visit to give you a quest. And certainly, if you did those quests, it might end up changing your experience quite a bit. But also, it felt very natural, like the quest had just been very well integrated into the base game experience. So you're starting with, I think Fallout New Vegas basically introduces the idea of the new California Republic and the Genghis Khans, the Great Khans. It's going to do this for each DLC. So some of these straight up DLCs are just giving you items to start with. I would hope it would be more than that. And it's such an old game, it's crazy that the DLC isn't just bundled into an Ultimate Edition, even if you're not going to remaster anything else. But yeah, you're not starting as a Vault character like in the Bethesda games or Fallout 1 or 2. So you should theoretically already know how the world works and what's going on, but then they're going to shoot you in the head so you can reset everything from that perspective. In fairness, Fallout 3's intro is even longer, but it's interactive. That tutorial section is like an hour, it feels like. You can see the screen is getting less and less white each time. But yeah, everything in the Fallout games, those subtitles must just be totally wrong. So let's go ahead and turn on general subtitles instead of just dialogue subtitles, because dialogue subtitles here must mean something completely different. Never mind. And yes, I am very close to just deciding to switch from amber to green in the interface.
Whoa, easy there, easy. You've been out cold a couple of days now. Why don't you just relax a second?
Now for a 2001 game, this looks really good.
How about your name? Can you tell me your name?
Let's just go with Courier since I'm on a controller.
You can't say it's what I'd have picked for you, but if that's your name, that's your name. I'm Doc Mitchell. Welcome to Good Springs. Now, I hope you don't mind, but I had to go rooting around there in your noggin to pull all the bits of lead out. I take pride in my needlework, but you'd better tell me if I left anything out of place. How'd I do?
Okay. So we have custom characters, and in modern times, these options on custom characters feel like they are really unnecessary, because you're going to be playing in a first-person perspective, or you're playing in a third-person perspective, and you're just seeing the back of people's heads. I'd say the male face here looks pretty awful, pretty rough. Oh yeah, I started to say, most of Fallout has taken place in the East Coast, more about the original 13 colonies, Washington, D.C., type areas, more where you can get more Americana. Being set in New Vegas or Las Vegas type area is a different kind of feel and a different kind of experience, certainly, and it probably is going to be a different kind of nostalgia. And the Fallout TV series being set in Hollywood certainly had a different feel. There is a hyper locality to how they tell their stories, so you really never know if at any point in the timeline whether what is happening on the East Coast is anywhere similar to what's happening on the West Coast, or what would be happening in Mexico or South America, or those areas would be anywhere close to the experience that's happening in the United States area. I think the storyline at some point said the United States annexed all of Canada, and just there's never been any real mention of like Australia, Africa, Europe. China was mentioned as the enemy, but for all you know, in the storyline, China might be perfectly well off. That is another thing that I think the TV series is going to probably start to try and set as canon, is to tell the whole story and not hold back just on the case of making another game. And Bethesda doesn't make games fast enough to really hold back anymore. The right move would definitely to be having more spin-off games than we've even seen with like Fallout 76 and Fallout Shelter, made by more Microsoft affiliates, so that the Fallout series really gets a level and a chance of being popular enough. One of the things that was interesting about the Fallout TV series is that the timeline is crazy. Like, even in the flashbacks, which there's quite a few in the Fallout TV series, and I'm not going to spoil the TV series too much, there really isn't that much to spoil. But even in the flashbacks, there seems to be no legacy of racism shown in the TV series, even though there is definitely hints at it in Fallout 3. And in the flashbacks in the TV series, while it looks like it's something from the 1940s, it's actually happening about 100 years in the future. So it'd be like 2100 timeline is when the flashbacks start. So it's almost like something happened to branch what the real history of America was hundreds of years in the past, and the stories are not in any way similar. And I think that is probably an interesting story to tell. This is supposed to be an Asian character. Doesn't really look that Asian to me. But yeah, I think there is probably an interesting story to tell, in that I think some time travel happens at some point in the Fallout storyline to change the course of events. But yeah, noticeably in the TV series, there's a lot more female rogues and enemies and characters that you fight than what I saw in Fallout 3, where there was more of a heavy leaning on fighting male presenting enemies. You would run into a group of raiders, and there might be one female for every 5 or 6. So the TV series kind of balanced that out more. Doesn't really matter. I think we'll go with Hispanic. It's almost like you're really just picking hairstyle and skin color for some, because Asian hair and Caucasian, it's just like, can you make this person a little bit too well lit up in the level of detail of the face versus this person? is this the same faces every time you select? I think it is. Since it's so limited, I'm really going by the face appearance, and so I'm gonna pick Caucasian. Although and then we'll see what like, probably would have made more sense to go forward and then go back on face presentations. Again, faces here though, the presets are not much. You have 10 presets, and then you can randomize, which kind of roughly just adjusts the proportions of a face. This is like early face bone structure rigging attempts. And this is kind of a great example of how terrible that early system is, and even now it's pretty terrible. Now the newest version of Unreal Engine 5 with its metahuman system has put a lot of work into generating realistic looking human faces that would knock this out of the water. But yeah, this would have been groundbreaking at the time, and really highlights how groundbreaking at the time does not work. So as you age, it seems like your skin gets more tanned, and maybe some slight factors change. But I would say the aging in particular only really works with the presets. There's just a lot of opportunity here to waste a massive amount of time. This is kind of a great example of something that didn't and wouldn't play a role in the TV series, is that you have one protagonist. Well, in reality you have probably 4 or 5 protagonists, 3 at least, in the TV series. And while the special skills are mentioned very quickly at the very beginning of the first episode, it doesn't really play any role, and they don't ever show you a Pip-Boy showing you perks or anything like that in the TV series. So there's a lot of headcanon going on there amongst the fans, trying to see if there's if they can figure out what her perks would be. Alright, so I need to just pick something. So I'd go back to preset 1. That was the one I picked. Would any of these work better? See what? Because what I was thinking is you might go like preset 4, then hit back, and then yeah, that doesn't do anything, does it? So if you really were going to mess with all this, you're going to have to go and pick every single race, because there's actually 40 presets here based on the races that you can't easily compare. And just take that number and double it. Yeah. In reality, because then you also have the male characters. Let's see. And there's just a ridiculous amount of adjustable settings here. Yeah. Beard, probably non-existent. Yep. Maybe there's some slight shadowing and stubble that would happen. None of this just really matters. Again. So what I would want is that hair color and that face model, because that's one that looks like it has about the best look. And I would assume none of this is DLC. And I would assume that there probably are some head styles here, like unladylike, that aren't male haircuts. And then different hair color customs. The problem with this hair style though is that she has like this big cut on her head. So I don't think I want to do that one either. And some of these older hairstyles just don't make sense for the protagonist of the character of the game. They make sense for NPCs, which obviously that would be the move. Trying to find something that would be somewhat natural but also kind of interesting to look at. I think we'll go with ginger. And so that's going to be the character I pick.
Well,
30 minutes in.
Right anyway, stuff that mattered. Okay, no sense keeping you in bed anymore. Let's see if we can get you on your feet. Good. Why don't you walk down to the end of the room, over by that vigor tester machine there. Take it slow now. It ain't a race.
So here we have the interface popping up, the heads-up display, and we can see scale feels a little off being stretched to widescreen, because it makes it feel like you're, well, I guess the room is just perhaps a little too big. I don't think stealing garbage is a smart move. Just overburden yourself very quickly. Let's see. The gun, he may very well just tell us to pick up the gun. And this doctor just saved us, so let's be nice to him.
Ooh, looking good so far. Go ahead and give the vigor tester a try. We'll learn right quick if you get back all your faculties.
So this is vigor tester to do your special strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. Now I have not thought at all about how I want to stat myself, nor do I really know any perks or anything yet, and I don't think I have a Pip-Boy to bring up any of that yet. Okay. So, inevitably you end up being overburdened, but having your strength at the maximum also is probably a mistake to start with. I think you probably want your intelligence at the maximum so you can gain more points. And in Fallout 3, the only way you could get enough points to get everything to 10 was to get everything to 9, or almost everything to 9, and then get some perks that would bump even an 8 to a 10. And it was just not really reasonable that you would actually do that in a regular playthrough without following some kind of strategy guide. So Strength will tell you how easily a cowboy totes a saddle, and there's a bunch of text here I don't think I'm gonna read. It affects your melee, unarmed, inventory weight, damage, and weapon effectiveness. So I think 5 is good. Perception is explosives, lockpicking, energy weapons, accuracy, and compass. I think having a higher perception makes sense. Maybe just start with 1 and we'll go around once. Endurance is your unarmed, your health, your resistance, and survival. I think you could probably do that. And certainly you could take things away if you don't care about them to get more points. Let's see. Charisma is barter, speech, nerve. So playing on easy, it didn't seem like it gave me it didn't seem like that got me to a point where I started with a lot of extra points. I'm not sure you really want extra points. Sneak attack, speed, action points, regeneration. It probably doesn't matter on agility. And then luck. All skills, critical hit, and enemy mishaps. Okay, and you probably don't want 1 point remaining. So. We could go with luck. We could bring intelligence down 1. But I don't think I really want anything like that. So 7, I think that's probably a decent place to start, not knowing how this game is really going to go. I don't know if there's really a new game plus element here either.
Yeah, that's a pretty standard score there, but after what you've been through, I'd say that's great news. Well, we know your vitals are good, but that don't mean them bullets didn't leave you nuttered in a big one and drop it. What do you say you take a seat in my couch and we go through a couple of questions? See if your dogs are still barking.
So now we're gonna have like a psychoanalyst session, it looks like. We can see ourselves sit down and we can see we're just in our underwear.
All right. I'm gonna say a word.
Now, in that case,
first thing that
when it was a cutscene, they moved the camera towards him. And noticeably, when he started talking to me and I wasn't in a cutscene sitting down, the camera did not turn to him, and I would have liked to see that. I don't think you can get cats in Fallout. I don't think cats show up at all. That would obviously make some sense to introduce cats, but I think I'll go with train.
House.
So this is just, are we going to be a good guy or are we going to be a bad guy based on word association? Let's see, investment, renovate, burglarize. Let's go with renovate. I'm not sure if you get a house location. You probably do in this game where you can drop off your things and decorate. That is another element that is in Fallout 3 though, that by modern standards is not really that interesting of a gameplay mechanic. And yes, you want a little bit of customization of an environment, but it really should be nothing more than you unlock something that an artist did, not allowing the player to decorate things the way they want to. There are games now that are solely built around the idea of decorating houses and things like that, and mods certainly can let you do that, but for your core gamer, that's not what they're coming for, even as a third gameplay mechanic. Sleep. Treasure sleep, I guess.
Bandit.
Let's see, Swiss cheese. What? Bandits should be crushed.
Light.
Inspiration.
Mother.
Now, the Fallout TV series, Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, all have this family element to the story where the main character is looking for a family member, and that's why they leave the vault. It is a little too repetitive and kind of a meme at this point. It's kind of nice that we have yet to see that be the case here. Let's go with Mother is caretaker.
Okay. Now I got a few statements. I want you to tell me how much they sound like something you'd say. First one. Conflict just ain't in my nature.
This is a funny way that some games walked you through setting up your RPG elements, just kind of working you around the problem of just making a character sheet like you would in a tabletop game like Dungeons and Dragons. It's probably better in modern times to just have people make a character sheet and interpret it directly. Conflict is not in my nature. I'm going to agree slightly.
I ain't given to relying on others for support.
We'll disagree strongly. I do want companions.
I'm always fixin' to be the center of attention.
I'll agree slightly.
I'm slow to embrace new ideas.
I'll strongly disagree.
I charge in to deal with my problems head on.
I'll disagree slightly.
Almost done here. What do you say you have a look at this? Tell me what you see.
Oh, so those are real pictures in the world that are just magically popping up behind him. Okay. So what do I see in an ink blot? I see a necklace myself. If each of the little squares was a necklace, and then there was a couple that were flipped over, pointing the other direction. Almost like a necklace there. That you don't have that option, I don't think. So, an angry two-headed ant, don't see it. An oozing wound, don't see it. Shadow of a door frame, don't really see that. Chemical reaction, I mean, maybe. Broken chain. Let's go with broken chain. That's the only one I actually think I could interpret that as.
Okay. How about this one?
Yeah. Feels like there should be a projector changing the pictures there, if that's what they're doing, or they should have animated him moving the art. Here I see what looks like a four-winged animal or angel on the top of a mountain with a long shadow. Priceless work of art. Some piece of space-age technology. Ship at sea. I can see ship at sea. I'm too embarrassed to say what it looks like. Yeah, there's the word phallic for things that look like a penis, and then there's the word yonic, which is used far less often for what looks like a vulva. And I could see this being very yonic. But even in that, I don't think that is the closest thing I'd interpret that as. Priceless work of art. Let's go with that.
Last one.
Now this one looks like a bear high-fiving a guy with a hood over him. With maybe some statues in the background. A light in the darkness. Bearded man. Mushroom cloud. Oh yeah, I can see a mushroom cloud there. A head pillow. A head on a pillow. I don't see that one. I'm gonna go with a light and a darkness.
Well, that's all she wrote. I don't have nothing to compare it to, so maybe you'd better just have a look at the results. See if it all seems right to you.
So now they're just gonna tell you what to do, and here's your skill sets. So I'm pretty much gonna change all of these. And if you're following a walkthrough guide, you'd probably know exactly what to do here. Barter skill affects prices you get for buying and selling items. In general, the higher the barter skills, the lower the prices on purchase items. Starting early on that might be very useful, whereas starting early on energy guns is probably a mistake. Same is probably true for explosives. If my experience in Fallout 3 was to anything, I almost never got explosives. Having better experiences with just your weapons, which it seems like there's less skills here than Fallout 3 as far as guns, because I think we're heavy guns and light guns on top of laser guns and regular guns. Lockpicking skills, you're basically going to get that unlocked. Playing on very easy, probably don't need medicine. Probably not going to play on melee. Inherently, there is always this problem in Skyrim to compare to Bethesda games where you try to play as a two-handed warrior and then it very just quickly turns into you being a stealth archer because the game is so funneled in that direction. So repair, create items and guns and munitions. It's probably a smart one. Speech is, you're gonna do a lot of speaking. So it's probably speech, repair. I'm trying to think of scenarios where you'll get into a specific encounter where you need to fix something, and having a repair ability would help. Medicine also might be a good argument to get that one too, for the same reason that you might find somebody wounded and having a medical skill ability would help, but then having science would also help you there. So we are just kind of going full nerd here. Now barter is the better one to go with, I think. So barter, repair, or science is the question. All this is doing is starting you off at fairly high spots. Instead of somewhere around 15, you're starting at 34, and you'll have to just level up to continue to push these. What you can't do is put 2 points into the same of these classes and get really high to start with. And either there is a mod that would let you do a new game plus and start with the stats that you had in your last playthrough, or the game itself would let you do that. I imagine it's probably a mod. And on a second or third playthrough, I could see wanting to be at 100 at all of these stats. Although they put so much effort into these RPG elements and the stats, and in the end, the game is still balanced enough that it's going to try and give you a challenge. So it doesn't. While it may drastically change the appearance of the game, you still end up doing the same thing in about the same amount of time. You run into challenges, you accomplish those challenges in basically the same way. It's just numbers change.
Before I turn you loose, I need one
Which
more
is
thing from you.
not
Got
a great
form
thing.
for you to fill out so I can get a sense of your medical history. Just a formality. Ain't like I expect to find you got a family history of getting shot in the head.
So yeah, the idea of having games that are just overly balanced is a problem still to this day, where the numbers go up. Borderlands, even much later, had that problem where you would level up, but then enemies would level up, so it still would take the same number of bullets to kill most enemies. So here's our secondary traits. So you start off with your special, and that's your skill points. Then you have perks that give you a boost to your skill points, and now you have traits that are going to give you potentially extra elements. And I would say this doesn't feel like that many compared to Fallout 3 either. But maybe that's the right way to do it, is to, well, there's an argument to not have any of this kind of variety at all, because it changes the experience quite a bit. Skilled, gain plus 5 points to every skill, but suffer 10% from experience gained from now on. I think you probably would only take that at the very end of the game. Every level may be a year in your age going up. That's a weird one. Here's a weird one. Gain 25 pounds to carry capacity, but you suffer -1 to all attributes anytime weight you're carrying drops below 160 pounds. +5 to barter, medicine, repair, and science and speech. -5 to energy weapons, explosives, melee weapons, and unarmed. So that's probably one I want. While wearing any type of glasses, you have +1 perception. All of these feel very balanced. Gain +1 to your special attributes while outside, but suffer -1 while indoors. I don't think I'd really want that. +2 to your special from 6 to 12 p.m. -1 from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. when you're not your best. You'd think for an early bird there would also be a night owl ability that would just be the opposite of that. Hmm. 10 action points. Trigger discipline may be your best bet here. Then Wild Wasteland feels like something you wouldn't really want to do until later. So I'll go with trigger, discipline, and good natured. And then I think you're just stuck with these, so we have not played any of the game yet, and they're asking you to make pretty big decisions.
All right, I guess that about does it. Come with me, I'll see you out.
So it's kind of important to, so he was, I guess, just putting the picture there and they just didn't animate it. We just have nothing as far as inventory goes. And I still don't want to really rob that guy. Of course, you could play as the bad guy.
Here, these are yours. It was all you had on you when you was brought in. I hope you don't mind, but I gave the note a look. I thought it might help me find a next of kin. But it was just something about a platinum chip. Well, if you're heading back out there, you ought to have this. They call it a Pip-Boy. I grew up in one of them vaults they made before the war. We all got one. Ain't much use to me now, but you might want such a thing after what you've been through. I know what it's like having something taken from you. And put this on too, so the locals don't pick on you for lacking modesty. Was my wife's. I think she was about your size, and she hardly wore it after we left the vault. Felt it was too brazen.
So they're from Vault
Don't
21.
mention it. It's what I'm here for. You should talk to Sunny Smiles before you leave town. She can help you learn to fend for yourself in the desert. She'll likely be at the saloon. I reckon some of the other folks at the saloon might be able to help you out too. And the metal fella, Victor, who pulled you out of your grave. Anyway, you ever get hurt out there, you come right back. I'll fix you up. But try not to get killed anymore.
So, hardcore mode. Fallout New Vegas allows you to play in new hardcore mode that greatly increases the challenge of the game. Hardcore mode usually means if you die, you cannot load or continue playing. Steam packs heal over time and cannot mend broken limbs. Radaway removes radiation over time. Ammunition has weight. Dehydration is a constant concern. This mode is only recommended for advanced players. You may turn hardcore mode on or off at any time in the gameplay mode, but if you activate hardcore mode now and maintain it to the end of the storyline, you'll receive a special reward. I think we can say no, since I already picked playing on very easy. There. Question mark 1. So, Fallout 3, you walk through the vault door and see this giant open world. And here we are opening a door and just going to a small village from what I can tell. Still, Pip-Boy's not opening yet. So this would be DLC stuff probably. You've got a fragmented signal from a Pip-Boy, a coded transmission with a sort of sad, jazzy undercurrent that makes your head hurt. As far as you can tell, it appears to be an invitation to the midnight science fiction feature at the Mojave Drive-In. Please arrive early to catch the trailers. Old World Blues has been loaded. Your level cap has been raised by 5. So there would have been actual level caps. This is probably different DLC. Your Pip-Boys received the signal coordinates that led to the canyon wreckage west of Prim. All the coordinates are the words Courier 6. It's signed Ulysses. Lonesome Road has been loaded. Your level cap has been increased by 5. Another DLC. Your Pip-Boy has picked up a radio broadcast from Happy Trails Caravan Company. They're looking for one more member for an expedition to Zion Valley. Honest Arts has been loaded, level cap being raised by 5 again. And this all looks very, very pretty for as old as this game is. And we're getting all kinds of quests. I guess we're still getting DLC quests. The ongoing conflict in the Mojave Wasteland has kicked weapons manufacturers in high gear. All major and minor weapon dealers in the region are rolling in new weapons, ammunition types, and modifications. Head to your nearest participating venue to pursue this is merchandise. I imagine this is a DLC that just adds more guns. And more variety. It does feel like this game is about a bit more limited, but that's not really a problem in modern time when you know that there's other Fallout to play if you want to play more Fallout. One thought certainly is that they could also, instead of just remastering New Vegas, which everybody would like, they probably should remake Fallout 1 and 2, and maybe even Fallout Tactics, the side game. Just remake it in a new engine, same storyline, whole new, bigger world, perhaps mostly procedurally generated. But yeah, the game series is so old, and there's just such a vast difference from the top-down isometric perspective of Fallout 1 to Fallout 3 that should be addressed. And Bethesda certainly has the resources and time to see that happen. So, Sierra Madre grand opening. Your Pip-Boy picked up a radio broadcast inviting you to the grand opening of the Sierra Madre Casino. Dead money has been loaded. Your level cap has been raised by 5. Now, everything again is probably pretty balanced, but you also probably don't want to do any of those quests. Which one gets your Pip-Boy? Oh. A? Interesting. Your Pip-Boy here looks almost exactly like the Pip-Boy in Fallout 3, which you would think that there might be modified versions for each game or different versions of it. Timeline-wise, this is supposed to have happened earlier, before the events of Fallout 3. But chronologically, the game would have been released after Fallout 3, so you would have wanted to give this character an experimental Pip-Boy that was different, better quality. I imagine New Vegas was built fairly in parallel. Okay, so equip the binoculars. And I just question how many of these things you would have started with without DLC. But in fairness, there really is just no case where you shouldn't have all the DLC. Anyways, I don't think I really need to read all of this. So this one would have a defense, I think, of 8. This is 12, but it's medium armor, not instead of light armor. This would be 4, so there's really no reason why you'd wear that. This gives you speech and melee weapons, but no defense at all. So, yeah, super stim packs, almost certainly not something you would start with without DLC. This Vault 13 canteen may keep you not dealing with thirst at all throughout the game, which I'm more than happy to not have to worry about thirst as an effect. We can see our special here. We can see our skills. To start with, we can see the 2 perks we have. I assume there will be more perks. Our HP is 200, our action points are 80, we're at level 1, our XP is 10 out of 200. Right. So, unless
Howdy. My name is Jed Masterson.
we wanted to search any of these, I don't think we want to really do any of that. Apparently it's October 19th, 2181, according to the date in the top right corner. Okay, so here's the map. Here's the world map. We really don't know where we're going. It would be a matter of just... I'm gonna have to figure out how to use all these buttons. It's like right trigger, right bump, left bumps. If you want to zoom in, it's left bump and right bump. If you want to see the world map, it's going to the right on the left analog stick. So what I wanted to do was this. Yeah, and then if you want to pan, it's the right analog stick. So it looks to me like we are here. If there's really only supposed to be one big location, then New Vegas must be there. This entire world seems to be fairly centered around that one location, but in reality I would assume that on a small scale there is a lot of encounters and a lot of stuff in between all of this. There's probably a lot of interesting things in the corner. Compared to Fallout 3, the map does seem smaller, and then there was just an entire upper section of the map that was a very dangerous area, and then there was a lot of content on the diagonal in Fallout 3. But the first time I played Fallout 3, I almost didn't touch the top triangle at all. Just everything in the equivalent of that area in Fallout 3 I did not visit because I stayed on the main storyline quest too much. And there definitely was some sections in the lower right corner of Fallout 3 that were pretty empty. What are our quests? If I can get it. Let's see. It's back in the saddles. This is where we're going. And so that quest is going to point us to going that way to that saloon. And so that's where we're going to head out. I think in the next episode, though. Let's make a save. Why is there a limitation of 1,000 saves? I have no idea. I think I have more than enough space on my hard drive to address millions of saves if necessary. And let's go ahead and call it as far as this. We want green. Just because. I don't think there's any other thing that needs to change. If I start killing things in one shot because it's very easy, maybe I'd bring up the difficulty, but honestly, it seems like you get a reward for playing hardcore mode from the beginning. So you potentially could just play hardcore mode on very easy and get whatever special thing it is actually going to give you. I'm going to check the audio after this recording and hope that all works. And so far the controller button layout is a little questionable, but the controller does seem like it is working. There we go. That feels like Fallout to me. Way more. We equipped binoculars. I guess the question is, are the binoculars worth it? This is the kind of element where that kind of limitation is something that would feel like good roleplay, but in reality, it's the B button that brings up Pip-Boy, not A. Yeah, that just as a color element alone. There were some early vacuum form tube technologies that were more amber in their appearance, but green is just way easier to read. So I don't regret that decision at all. The fact that you can still zoom in the screen without binoculars, though, really breaks the idea of forcing the player to use binoculars to see further away. And it is kind of amazing that, like, I assume a lot of this is just DirectX programming, has a scalability, but either the engine this game uses, or DirectX, the advanced programmable interface that Windows uses, Windows games use, has this scalability where, so you're going to get a pop-up in the top left every time you drink from the canteen. Interesting. That's going to get annoying. Everything just looks really, really good visually. I'm not seeing anything here that would scream this is a 2001 game that is not playable in 2024. So what I imagine we want to do is just go here first, see what happens, see if we get some quests that would have us do things in the city before we leave the city. That looks like corn, but I bet that's actually just fake glass decorations of corn. So the other element on this is the kind of game that could easily be a 200-hour game. Yeah, let me speak correctly there. You can't apparently change the color in the menu, though. Or maybe if I exited it out it would, but I'm not going to worry about that. There would be an argument to make longer episodes, but I am still trying to make episodes that are somewhat shorter, so we've already gone past an hour. I was really targeting 45 minutes. For this game series, 45 minutes is not going to be reasonable. So we'll try to go for an hour to an hour and 30 minutes at most per episode. And yeah, I know there was a lot of setup here in this first episode, but I think we've got it. So that's going to be it for this one. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and keep on watching. Thanks.